Welcome to eClassroom. I'm Zhelianka Demirova. I'm a teacher of English in the high school Metod Dimitevsky Brizo in Delcho. Today's lesson is about modal verbs. We'll do some review and practice enough, hopefully. And the lesson is for first year B1 level. Let's start. What are the most common modal verbs that we already know? Can and could, may and might, should, ought to, must, have to, will, would, and shall. And what's the function of the modal verbs? To modify or change the meaning of the other verbs. For an example, we have a simple statement. I read German poetry. What does it mean? That you do it as a usual repeated activities. Doing it on a regular basis. I read German poetry, saying nothing more or less. But if you say, I must read German poetry, this is totally different. I must read German poetry, let's say, for exams. I should read German poetry. Why? To improve skills. And the last statement, I can read German poetry, I'm able to do it. But if I do it, if I read German poetry on a regular basis or not, that's another story. You see how these modal verbs change the meaning of the verb read. Some rules to remember about the modal verbs. Therefore, they do not change their form. There is no S form, there's no ed form, and there's no to infinitive form. You can see in the last two verbs, ought to and have to, they do have to, but there's an explanation for it. These are exceptions. Have to is also a lexical verb, meaning it takes as ed, it takes to. Example, she has to take the allergy medicine, meaning same as she must take the allergy medicine. We had to connect via Zoom to follow our classes. We were obliged to do it. You see, there is ed of the verb have to. And ought to is similarly meaning with the verb should, and the word to is attached to it almost always. Let's go back to their use. You remember the example with I can read German poetry and the other sentences that followed when we played with the verbs? Yeah, they express different concepts. Ability, advice and suggestion, lack of obligation and necessity, necessity, obligation and prohibition, permission and request, possibility and certainty. Hopefully we'll manage to cover them all in a very short time. The concept of ability, using the modal verb can or can't. I can play the piano. She can speak Arabic. He can drive a motorbike. We can't come now. The same concept in the past, could and couldn't. I could run fast when I was 10. My granddad couldn't dance until he took dancing classes. When the computer crashed, I was able to fix it. Was able here is presented as a semi-modal because it really is a semi-modal. Semi means half. The concept of advice and suggestion. Advice, should, ought to, and had better are often used to give advice. You should rest more. Advice. You shouldn't leave your phone on direct sunlight. Again, advice. You had better make changes before you ask your teacher for a bigger grade. Doesn't sound like an advice. It is advice, but it sounds a little bit stronger. Expressing suggestion. We could ask her to join us, or we could go without her. You might not want to go to the party, and that's okay. Shall we eat first and then go out in the park? Examples for lack of obligation and necessity. Obligation means something that you have to do, and lack, that is absence of something. So, lack of obligation, something you don't need to do or you don't have to do. The examples: you needn't take an extra test to prove your knowledge. I needn't buy all these things. It isn't necessary to take your umbrella. It isn't raining. He doesn't have to get up early. He doesn't need to get up early. He needn't get up early. You see how many possible ways to say the similar thing. Expressing necessity, obligation, and prohibition again need to, have to, and must. Prohibition means something that you can't do because it's forbidden, usually by a law or regulation. Example, I must give up smoking. Why? I need to do it. I say so, that I must give up smoking. I am talking to myself or telling my friend about my decision that I must give up smoking. I have to give up smoking. I'm obliged to. My doctor says so. Compare the first two examples. We need to have to confirm our reservations before Friday. You mustn't feed the animals in this zoo. The concept of permission and request. A request is asking for something strongly. Using the same verbs. Could I have some more juice? Could I bring a friend to the party? Can I play music? Can I wear shorts? May I use a calculator on the test? May I have another piece of cake? You notice here that may is more polite way of asking for permission, and could is less formal, and can, on the other hand, is the least formal of all. The concept of possibility and certainty. She must be on the bus. I'm fairly sure that is a good guess. She must be on the bus. But you're not 100% sure. She might come soon. She might come soon, maybe. She couldn't be lost. She could be lost. Maybe she's lost. Maybe not. She may be in the wrong room. Same as the previous example. She can't be at home. I'm fairly sure this isn't true. Here you're making logical conclusion actually. Move on with the next two. They should be there by now. You're making assumptions. Another guessings. It shouldn't take long to drive here, making assumption again. Now it's time to practice. Please stop your video for 5 minutes. Read the examples. Try to write the correct modal verb. Sometimes more than one possibility is correct. So take your time. And the answers will be given in the other slide. Here are the answers. Hope you have more than 4 sentences correct. And remember, this is a choice that I gave with only modal verb, but you could give more similar to the sentences that we saw previously. Until next time, try to practice sentences aloud. Do your best and feel free to use other modal verbs to change the meaning of the words. Until next time, bye bye.